Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're taking a look at the Warhammer 40,000 Balanced Dataslate. This video is sponsored by the Game Bunker. More on that later. Warhammer 40,000 Balanced Dataslate. Here's what's changed in the 41st millennia. Alright, so about once a quarter, Games Workshop updates the balance in Warhammer 40,000. So we have not only rules changes, but we also have some points updates as well. Let's take a look at this massive shakeup. It's March, and that means it's time for the latest Warhammer 40,000 Balanced Dataslate, alongside updates with FAQ and errata. You can download the full document below, while the Warhammer Studio kindly discusses some of the key changes below. So we have the download updates. That's going to take you to everything that has changed, and there are a ton of changes. So first off, we had the Adepta Sororitas. Adepta Sororitas have struggled a bit in their fight against the forces of the Imperium, so we have reverted to the part of the Acts of Faith that allows you to gain miracle dice each time a unit is destroyed. We were not happy with the results last time and hope this puts the faction into a more fun and fair place. We've also brought down the points on a handful of units to better represent their strength without having access to as many miracle dice as they did in the past. Alright, so this seems like an overall good change. My issue with the Adepta Sororitas is that they needed some rules changes back in the day. Instead, they got multiple points increases, and then they finally implemented the rules changes and then didn't roll back the points increases. So basically, everything got worse and then was overcosted. Now Games Workshop is rolling back some of the points, and then also they're bringing it back to where now every time a unit dies, you're going to get a miracle dice instead of restricting you to one per phase. So overall, the Adeptus Sororitas are going to gain more miracle dice and they're going to cost less points. That is probably right around where they need to be. And then next we have the Adeptus Custodes. Adeptus Custodes have been having a great time recently, and we are quite pleased to see people playing them in different ways. To make sure that everyone is having the best time playing against them, we've moved around the points on a few units from the Emperor's golden favorites. The Blade Champion and Custodian Wardens have gone up, as we still feel they are more powerful than their points. The Venerable Contemptor Dreadnought and Telemon Dreadnought have also received a minor increase, and the recent Solar Spearhead detachment has made them shine quite brightly. We reduced points on a few units that we felt were more expensive than their comparable units, such as Alea, the Custodian Guard, the Knight Centura, and Shield Captains. Alright, so overall I definitely think this is a good change. You're basically seeing like 3 Blade Champions and 3 Borden units in every army. So realistically, a points increase to them is really only going to affect you if you're spamming those units. So if you were taking 3 Wardens and 3 Blade Champions, and each one of those units went up by like 10 or so points, your whole army has gone up by like 60 points, so you should be able to trim out one of your cheap chaff units to make up for that. But Wardens are absolutely awesome, and Blade Champions grant them a lot of abilities that really synergize well. And then for the Venerable Contemptor Dreadnought and the Telemon Dreadnought, especially in the new detachment where you can provide a Feel No Pain to the Telemon, make him a character, definitely needed at least a little bit of a points bump. And then things like Alea that you almost never see on the tabletop, Custodian Guard that you max see like 1 unit, Knight Centura, and Shield Captains, all probably in a much better place with a small points drop. So overall, looks like some good changes, as it's going to specifically affect like the internal balance of the codex, but probably not going to change much for your overall points costs. Next we have the Adeptus Mechanicus. So Belisarius Call and the Tech Priest Dominus have fallen in points a little to make it easier to include them in your army. So we don't really see Call that often, and then Tech Priest Dominus is definitely a nice little piece to have, so a little points drop on them, definitely not going to change anything massive, but probably well deserved. Then we have Aeldari. We've made a change to Asterman's ability, the Hand of Asterman, changing its anti-infantry ability to 5+ to reduce the amount of devastating wounds it could put out. So it was previously 3+, which was very powerful. 5+ is definitely a nerf. I'm not sure this is going to like really hurt him. This is definitely not going to make him unusable, but it is definitely a big nerf. I think probably going to like 4+ would have been a little more reasonable, in line with something like Stern Guard. But overall, probably not going to make a massive difference. But if you are going into something like Terminators that have 3 wounds, going from anti-infantry 3 up to anti-infantry 5 up is going to substantially decrease the devastating wounds and force them to make some armor saves instead. Astra Militarum. We've made some changes to the Combat Engineer's Remote Mine, reducing the mortal wounds to a D3 to bring it into line with the Kasrkin Melta Mine. So that was definitely extremely powerful and auto-include 3 of those units. So definitely good to see them drop that down, more in line with like the Kasrkin's Melta Mines or something like the Incursors for Space Marines. The Bridgehead Strike detachment has proven to be very strong, so we've increased the points to units it boosts. We've also changed the Bridgehead Strike Fire Zone Purge rule to add +1 to hit instead of wound on the Tempest Assigned Stormtrooper ability, has now changed to reroll wounds with the Codex release. Additionally, the Firing Hot stratagem has increased CP cost as it is particularly powerful. Okay, so +1 to hit is still going to be a nice boost, but not nearly as good as +1 to wound, as we know from the Space Marines' new Oath of Moment rule that +1 to wound is extremely powerful, especially when coupled with re-rolling wounds when you're shooting at a target that's on an objective. So probably a nice nerf right here. Still going to be very powerful, also going to get some points increases, but overall I think a fair change. And then Firing Hat stratagem going up to 2 CP instead of 1. Definitely going to be on the bit pricey side, especially because you're not going to have access to the Lord Solar Leontis extra command points, so you're going to be using this a lot less, but when you do, it's still going to be very impactful. The extra strength and extra AP, especially when coupled with first rank fire, second rank fire, it's still going to dish out a ton of firepower, but now you're going to have to be a little more selective as to when you use it. But realistically, the Astra Militarum, specifically Bridgehead Strike Detachment, definitely needed some nerfs as it was going to be overpowered. Now a quick word from today's sponsor, Game Bunker. Game Bunker carries a full range of Games Workshop products including miniatures, terrain, paint, tools, and more. Game Bunker offers 15% off MSRP for most Games Workshop products with the discount code WHMS. Receive free shipping in the continental United States on orders over $145. Online orders ship out within 24 hours. Game Bunker is a veteran-owned business. Use affiliate link below, enter discount code WHMS to save 15% on most items at checkout. For fast, friendly service with a discount on your favorite tabletop wargaming purchases, visit GameBunker.net and let them know that Warhammer Man sent you. Blood Angels. Certain Death Company Marine units and Death Company Captain have reduced in points to bring them in line with other Codex units. On the other hand, the Rage Field Warriors enhancement brings so much rage that it's getting a moderate points increase. So regular Death Company Marines and Death Company Captains almost never seeing play. This is not going to affect Death Company units with jump packs, so definitely a good change for internal balance. And then Rage Field Warriors enhancement going up by a couple of points. Not going to be a game changer as it is a very strong enhancement and well worth the points cost even if it went up by like 10 or so points. Then we have Chaos Demons. The Legion of Excess has proven quite powerful, and we're making changes to the detachment rule to be less punishing. Seductive Gambit now no longer grants full rerolls to hit and wound, though units still get full rerolls with their Shadow of Chaos. We feel this is a bit more fair and links better with the twisting power of demons outside of the warp. The Thieves of Pain stratagem has been changed so the unit intercepting damage must be a visible target, as it was previously possible to hide a unit that the damage was being moved to before. We've removed the Battle Shock portion of the Overwhelming Access stratagem, so it now is -1 to hit against units in all cases, but you can now use it during the shooting and fight phase. Okay, so Legions of Access was extremely powerful, definitely needed a little bit of a nerf. Full rerolls to hit and wounds were absolutely devastating, and then also the changes to make it so it has to be inside of the Shadow of Chaos makes perfect sense. Otherwise, the changes are minor, but should overall affect the balance and be good, as most of these Legions of Access detachments or demon detachments had an extremely high win rate. Then we have Leagues of Votann. Since the Leagues of Votann are always judging both you and your army, the army roll now allows you to pick 2 enemy units at the start of the battle and give them 2 judgment tokens. We've reduced the starting values of the Oathband judged enemy units to align with these changes. Okay, so now that's going to make your other detachment much more viable, as the actual army rule is going to have a couple of judgment tokens affiliated with it, and then you're going to be able to choose a specific detachment if you want extra judgment tokens, or if you don't want those extra judgment tokens, you can benefit from the other detachment rules. Overall, I think there's a really good change and makes the other detachment much more viable. Not going to overall affect Leagues of Votann if you're running the standard detachment, but it is sort of a stealth buff to the Grotmist detachment and makes it much more viable. Overall, good changes. Now we have the Orks. We've made a change to the Listener rule in the Tactical Brigade detachment to better represent the Orc way of bossing each other around. Orcs units will now only get 1 tactic and will always make a leadership test to see if they need to smash some heads to get the message across. This change aligns better with the theme and reduces some of the stacking combos that were making some units too powerful. We've changed Shankbusters so they need to see an enemy before they send out their bomb squigs, and tweaked the wording to ensure that they may only dispatch 1 at a time. So overall seems like some good changes. Tactical Brigade obviously very, very strong right now. So some slight nerfs, but probably not going to be massive changes to the Orcs, as they have overall been crumping pretty good. And then we have Space Marines. We've been quite happy with the recent changes to Space Marines, but a few chapters have been attempting to claim that they are Codex compliant, even though they are pretty sure that they've never attempted to look at the book. So we've clarified the Oath of Moment to Benefit only works for Codex Space Marine detachments. Okay, that makes perfect sense. So previously there was like sort of a workaround where you take no non-Codex compliant units, but you could still play something like Blood Angels or Dark Angels, and then benefit from the +1 to wound for being Codex compliant. Now that workaround has been fixed. So I think overall that is a good change, and definitely something that was unintended before. Uriel Ventress can now only grant Deep Strike to Phobos, Gravis, and Tacticus units. Okay, so Uriel Ventress, obviously a very powerful character with his Vect ability, and then also giving a Deep Strike to a single unit. Previously, it was being used on Centurion Devastators, and then comboed with the Vanguard detachment to be able to pick them up, Deep Strike them, and then just absolutely devastate stuff. So this isn't going to completely destroy the combo, but it does mean that in order to do this combo, you're going to have to come in from strategic reserves, or you're going to have to put the Deep Strike on a different unit. Still restricted to infantry, but now it's going to be Phobos, Gravis, and Tacticus units. So not going to completely break that combo, but definitely going to make it a little more restrictive, a little easier to screen out, and overall a little more balanced. Certain sneaky Phobos lieutenants were able to move, shoot, and then charge. We've now added a limitation to the strategic dispersal rule so that they can't declare charge after moving. Okay, so this is a big nerf to the Reavers. So previously, and I have been doing this for the entire edition, I've been running a Phobos Lieutenant with a Reaver squad, dropping him from deep strike, shooting, moving a d6, and then charging 2d6, essentially making it so a 9-inch charge on 3d6 is almost unfailable. Looks like that is gone. So I think realistically, the Phobos Lieutenant is still going to be good, but not nearly as good. And more often than not, we're going to see Reaver squads without the Lieutenant now. And then Wind Swift Evasion stratagem was targeted some units that would not be described as swift. As a result, we've now limited the targets of the stratagem to infantry and mounted units. All of this and more can be found in the latest balanced Dataslate. Download it below. Alright, so we will have the links down below in the description, and then obviously we'll take a deeper dive into some of the rules and points changes. Overall, I think this is more in line with what we'd expect from Games Workshop. Some minimal changes to a couple things that were overpowered. I think the changes to Adepta Sororitas are good, the nerfs to Bridgehead, and then a couple of the other changes as well, making sure that Space Marines are actually like not skirting the rules to get the +1 to wound, but following the rules as intended. We'll have to see how this flushes out over time. There's obviously been a bunch of new detachments with the grot stuff, a bunch of new detachments coming out here as well, lots of new books coming out. So now we're going to have a few months without any changes to kind of let the meta sort itself out, at which point in time Games Workshop can kind of readdress the changes, the new units, the new codexes, the new detachments, and then we can see where everything flushes out. So overall, looks like some good changes. Let me know if there's anything in particular you were expecting to change, hoping to change, happy that changed, or upset about the changes. Always like to hear back from you guys in the comments. And as always, special thanks to the Game Bunker for sponsoring the channel. Check out the link in the description to save 15% on most Games Workshop products with code WHMS at checkout. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and I am definitely looking forward to seeing how these changes affect the tabletop. And I'm out of here.